The night was quiet. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly over the grand estate. Inside, the halls were dimly lit, the remnants of an event lingering in the air, distant murmurs of guests departing, the occasional clink of glasses being cleared away. Melania Trump walked alone. She wasn't one for unnecessary conversations or drawn-out goodbyes. Tonight had been yet another formal affair. Smiles, polite nods, strategic words exchanged between power players. But now, as she moved through the quiet corridors, she found comfort in the stillness. And then, she heard it, a muffled sound, faint but unmistakable. She stopped, listened. It was coming from a hallway to her left, secluded, away from the main activity of the estate. A small break room for staff, usually empty at this hour. The sound came again, a deep, shuddering breath. Someone was crying. Melania's eyes narrowed slightly. She was no stranger to silence, but this was different. This was not the casual solitude of a break or an idle moment of reflection. This was the sound of a man breaking. Slowly, she turned and walked toward the room. As she stepped closer, the light from the hallway cast a soft glow inside. And there, sitting on a worn-out chair with his head in his hands, was a Secret Service agent. One of her protectors. One of the silent, stoic figures who stood guard without question, without hesitation, and yet here he was, body hunched over, shoulders trembling, his breath uneven. Melania paused in the doorway. For a brief moment she considered walking away. Maybe he needed space. Maybe it was none of her business. But something inside her refused to turn back. She took a step forward, then another. The floor creaked slightly beneath her heels. The agent tensed. He inhaled sharply, straightening his posture as if preparing to return to duty, his instincts kicking in before his emotions could fully recover. He wiped his face quickly, clearing any evidence of vulnerability. And then, he saw her. His eyes widened, his lips parted, but no words came out. "Ma'am," he said finally, voice rough. She studied him for a moment. His uniform was immaculate, his posture trained, but his eyes told a different story. Red-rimmed, tired, burdened by something far greater than exhaustion. She could have ignored it. She could have given him a simple nod and walked away. But she didn't. Instead, she tilted her head slightly and said, "Are you all right?" It wasn't just a question. It was an invitation for honesty. For a moment, the agent hesitated. He looked away, exhaling sharply as if debating whether he could or should answer truthfully. Then his shoulders slumped slightly, and in a voice barely above a whisper, he muttered, "No, ma'am, I'm not." What is this agent hiding? What truth is too painful for him to say? Watch the next part to find out. Melania didn't move. She simply watched the man before her, the agent who had sworn to protect her, now looking like he was the one who needed saving. The silence stretched between them. His confession hung in the air like an unfinished sentence. "No, ma'am, I'm not." The words had escaped before he could stop them, and now, as if realizing what he had just admitted, his body tensed again. His training demanded that he backpedal. Cover it up, reassure her that everything was fine, but it wasn't, and she knew it. Melania crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "Then tell me what's wrong." The agent shook his head quickly, as if trying to regain control of himself. "It's nothing, I just—" He hesitated, looking away. His fingers curled into fists against his knees. "It's just been a long day." But that was a lie. Melania had heard lies before, too many to count. She had seen men disguise their emotions behind rehearsed words, polished smiles, fake assurances. This wasn't that. This was something deeper, and she wasn't going to let him dismiss it. "You are trained to endure long days." Her voice was calm but firm. "This is not that." The agent exhaled sharply. He wiped his face again, but there was no point. The mask had already fallen. For a moment, he seemed to debate whether he should keep going. Then, finally, He let go. "It's my son's birthday today." His voice was barely above a whisper. Melania's expression didn't change, but her eyes softened slightly. "He just turned 10, the agent continued, his voice cracking. "And I haven't seen him in 2 years. Stop. Read that again. 2 years, can you imagine? 2 years without seeing your own child. 2 years of birthdays missed. Bedtime stories left untold. Little league games watched only through blurry videos. If you were in his place, what would you do? Comment below, would you choose duty or family?" Melania let the silence settle. Her gaze never wavered as she said, "And what did he say to you today?" The agent inhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. "Nothing," he admitted. He barely wanted to talk. Those words hit like a bullet. He had dedicated his life to protecting a country, only to realize his own son barely recognized him anymore. "He used to get excited when I called," the agent murmured, staring at the floor. "Now he barely looks up from his video games." Melania didn't respond right away. What could she say? What could anyone say? After all, wasn't this the hidden cost of duty? Wasn't this the price that no one talked about? Pause. If you're still watching, I need to hear from you. What would you say to this agent if you were in Melania's place? Drop a comment below. But what he said next changed everything. To be continued. What do you think the Secret Service agent is about to reveal? The silence between them stretched, a silence heavy with the weight of regret. A silence that no amount of training, no years of discipline could prepare him for. The agent swallowed hard, still staring at the floor. He barely wanted to talk. Melania didn't move. She didn't rush to fill the space with empty reassurances. Instead, she let the truth of his words settle. She had seen this before, the unseen burden that men like him carried. They were trained to be unbreakable, to never show emotion. But tonight, the weight was too much. Finally, she spoke. "And what do you regret the most?" The agent exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Everything." "Be specific." The agent hesitated. He wiped a hand over his face, dragging in a breath that did nothing to steady him. Then, finally, he broke. "I had a chance to leave." Melania's eyes narrowed slightly. "To leave what?" His jaw clenched. He looked up at her then, his eyes no longer just tired, but haunted. "This." He gestured vaguely around them, but she knew he wasn't talking about the estate or the room they stood in. He was talking about the job, the system, the power structure that controlled more than just the agents. It controlled the truth. Melania's voice was calm but precise. "Then why didn't you?" His laugh was dry, hollow. "Because I thought I was protecting something that mattered." A pause. Then he shook his head. "But now I see it, and I can't unsee it." Melania's gaze sharpened. "What do you see?" The agent hesitated. He glanced toward the hallway, as if suddenly aware of how dangerous this conversation had become. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said it. "The illusion." "Stop. Read that again." "The illusion." "What does that mean? What did he see?" He exhaled sharply, lowering his voice even more. "We don't protect people, ma'am." Melania stiffened slightly. "We protect power." The words landed between them like a grenade, silent but deafening. "Wait, hold up. What would you do if you heard this? Drop a comment below. Should he expose the truth, or is it too dangerous?" Melania's expression remained unreadable, but inside something shifted. She had always known that power came with secrets, that the truth was not always what it appeared to be. But now she was hearing it from someone on the inside. Someone who had seen too much. Someone who had nothing left to lose. The agent ran a hand over his face. He was unraveling. He knew he had already said too much, but now he couldn't stop. "Do you know how many people disappear for asking the wrong questions?" Melania held his gaze. "Who?" His voice was hoarse but steady. "People like me." Another pause. Then the sound of footsteps. The agent immediately straightened, his entire demeanor shifting in an instant. The mask was back. The emotions locked away. Someone was coming. Melania remained perfectly still, but her mind was racing. This was no longer just about a man missing his son. This was about something much bigger, something no one was supposed to talk about, something she wasn't supposed to hear. And then, a voice from the hallway. "Agent, we need you in position." The moment was over, the truth buried again. But as the agent turned to leave, his eyes met Melania's one last time. And in that brief second, a silent message passed between them. "This isn't over." What do you think Melania will do next? Will she dig deeper or walk away? Comment below. What would you do if you knew something this dangerous? The moment passed, but the weight of it lingered. As the agent turned and walked away, his face was unreadable again, his movements crisp and professional. It was as if nothing had happened, but something had. Melania stood still, watching his retreating form, her mind working quickly. She had spent years surrounded by power, by control, by carefully crafted illusions. She had heard whispers before, hints of truths buried beneath politics and promises. But this was different. This wasn't a rumor. This was a man breaking under the weight of what he had seen. And now she had a choice. Stop. Ask yourself, what would you do? Comment below, should Melania ignore it, or should she demand the truth? The footsteps in the hallway faded. The room was silent again. But inside her, something had shifted. She turned, walking toward the nearest exit. The night air was crisp against her skin as she stepped outside, the world eerily still. Her mind replayed his words. "We don't protect people. We protect power." People disappear for asking the wrong questions. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. She had spent years carefully choosing her battles. But this felt different. Comment now. Do you think she should investigate further? Or is this too dangerous? Then her phone buzzed. A single message. Unknown number. "We need to talk." Her fingers tightened around the device. She glanced back toward the house, where inside, the game of power continued as it always had. But now, she knew something she wasn't supposed to know. And she had a choice. Walk away, or step into the unknown. To be continued. What should Melania do next? Comment below. Should she meet the unknown sender, or is it a trap? The screen of her phone glowed in the dim light. Unknown number. We need to talk. A chill ran down Melania's spine. She had received countless messages over the years, political invitations, requests, veiled threats disguised as pleasantries. But this was different. This wasn't a political opponent. This wasn't the press. This was something else. Pause. If you got this message, would you reply or ignore it? Comment below. What would you do? Melania's thumb hovered over the screen. She glanced around the courtyard. The estate was quiet, the distant murmur of security radios blending into the night. No one was watching. Or were they? She typed one word. Who? Seconds passed. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Someone who can confirm what you already suspect. Her pulse quickened. Was this a trap, or was this the start of something deeper? What do you think? Comment below. Should she meet them, or is it too dangerous? Melania took a slow breath. She had spent years surrounded by deception, by secrets wrapped in smiles. She had learned to read between the lines, and something told her this wasn't a bluff. This was real. She typed again. When? The reply came instantly. Unknown number. Tonight. Midnight. You know where. Her stomach clenched. She knew exactly what they meant. The abandoned courtyard, a place no one used anymore, tucked away on the far end of the estate. It was dark, isolated, off camera, the perfect place for a conversation no one was supposed to hear. She stared at the screen. Was she really going to do this? Then she thought about the agent, his broken voice, his words. People disappear for asking the wrong questions. And suddenly, her choice became clear. She was going. Stop. You're watching this story unfold in real time. What do you think will happen at midnight? Comment your theories below. The clock struck midnight. The estate was silent. Melania moved carefully, her heels soundless against the stone pathway. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that made everything feel heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. Ahead, the abandoned courtyard loomed, hidden from cameras, from staff, from prying eyes. This was where they had told her to come, and she had come alone. Would you go? Or turn back? Comment below. She hesitated at the entrance, her fingers tightening around her phone. She wasn't afraid. Fear was something she had learned to control long ago. But she was cautious. If the agent's words were true, if people really did disappear for asking the wrong questions, then what she was about to hear might change everything. A shadow moved. She turned, every instinct sharpened, but the figure stepped into the dim glow of the courtyard light. A man. Not the agent from earlier. Someone else. His suit was crisp but slightly wrinkled, like he had been wearing it too long. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were alert, watching her, studying her. "Mrs. Trump?" he said quietly. "You came." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she studied him back. Everything about him screamed intelligence. A man who had been inside the machine for too long. A man who had seen things. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady. He exhaled sharply, glancing around, as if making sure they were truly alone. Then he stepped closer, and what he said next sent a chill down her spine. "I work for them, or at least, I did." "Wait, who is them?" Comment below with your best guess. Melania's heart rate remained steady, but inside, her mind was racing. He wasn't here to waste time, and she wasn't here to play games. "What do you want?" The man looked at her for a long moment, then finally said, "To show you what they don't want you to see." What is he about to reveal? Comment your theories now. Melania didn't blink. She had heard enough vague warnings and half-truths in her lifetime. But this man, whoever he was, hadn't come here to whisper rumors. He was here to show her something real, something dangerous. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. The man exhaled, glancing around again, then slowly reached into his pocket. For a split second, Melania's instincts flared, her body tensed, but he wasn't pulling out a weapon. He pulled out a flash drive. "It's all here." She narrowed her eyes. "What is?" He hesitated, and then, in a low voice, he said something that made the air feel colder. "Proof." "Wait, proof of what? What do you think is on the drive?" Comment below. Melania didn't move, but inside her mind was already spinning. Proof. That word carried more weight than most people realized. Proof meant undeniable truth. Proof meant evidence someone didn't want exposed. And if this man had proof, then that meant someone was lying. "Show me," she said. The man hesitated, then nodded. "Not here." He turned and started walking. Melania followed. The courtyard disappeared behind them as they moved toward a darker, more secluded area of the estate. Her security detail wasn't here. No cameras, no witnesses. Just her, a man she didn't trust, and a secret that had already put too many people in danger. Finally, they stopped beneath a cluster of trees. The man glanced at her, then pulled out a small tablet. He plugged in the flash drive. A few seconds passed. Then, a screen flickered to life, and what Melania saw made her blood run cold. To be continued. What did Melania see? What's on the flash drive? Comment your theories below. The screen flickered to life. Melania's eyes remained fixed on it, her face unreadable. At first there was nothing but a loading bar. Then, footage, grainy, dark, but clear enough to make her heart pound. She watched as the camera followed a group of men walking through a heavily secured hallway. Their movements were precise, like ghosts slipping through a place they weren't supposed to be. Military? Number agents? Maybe. The footage cut. A new frame appeared. A hidden conversation, muffled voices. The quality wasn't perfect, but she could hear enough. This doesn't get out. Too many eyes on us already. Then another voice, familiar, powerful, cold. Make sure it's handled. Stop. Who is speaking? What is being handled? Comment below with your theories. Melania's stomach tightened. She recognized that voice. She had stood in rooms with that voice. She had watched people smile and shake hands with that voice. And yet, here it was, talking in shadows, ensuring something disappeared. The video wasn't finished. The screen flickered again. This time, a name appeared, a name that made Melania's breath catch in her throat. She turned to the man. Where did you get this? His jaw was tight. His eyes were filled with something she hadn't seen before. Fear. Real, consuming fear. From someone who isn't alive anymore. Wait, who died to get this footage? What did they know? Comment below. Should Melania expose this, or is it too dangerous? She felt the weight of the flash drive in her hands now. It wasn't just a piece of plastic. It was evidence. It was a weapon. And now, it was her responsibility. But before she could say anything, a noise, a rustling in the distance. The man stiffened. Melania's eyes darted toward the darkness. Someone was watching them, and whoever it was, they didn't want her to see what was on this drive. To be continued. What should Melania do? Run? Confront the shadow? Or destroy the drive? Comment below. What would you do in her place? The rustling in the shadows wasn't random. It was deliberate. Melania's grip on the flash drive tightened as her eyes scanned the darkness. The man beside her, tense, breathing shallow, had already stepped back slightly, his instincts sharp. He knew what this meant. They weren't alone anymore. Pause. What would you do in this moment? Run? Hide? Fight? Comment below. What's the right move? Then footsteps. Slow, measured. Someone who wanted them to hear. Melania stayed still. The man beside her, however, was already moving, subtly shifting his weight. His fingers hovered near his jacket. Was he armed? Would he use it? Then, from the darkness, a voice. That's far enough. Wait, who just said that? Who found them? Melania's stomach nodded. The tone was calm, controlled, the voice of someone used to being in charge. The man beside her stiffened. Whoever had found them, he recognized them, and that meant this wasn't a coincidence. Comment below. Who do you think it is? Another agent? A spy? Someone from the inside? The figure stepped forward, coming into view. The dim light revealed his face, and in that instant, Melania knew everything had just changed, because the man standing in front of them wasn't a stranger. She knew him. Who is he? What does he want? And how did he find them? Comment below. What should Melania do now? Confront him? Hide the drive? Play dumb? The figure stepped forward. The dim light cast sharp shadows across his face, but Melania recognized him immediately. It was someone she had seen in the halls of power. Someone always in the background, always watching, but never speaking. Pause. Who do you think it is? A government official? A betrayer? A protector? Comment below. Drop your guess before you keep reading. The agent beside her tensed. His entire body went rigid, his hands curling into fists. Melania could feel it, the way the air shifted. This wasn't a chance encounter. This was a warning. Who sent this man, and what does he know? Finally, the man spoke. Mrs. Trump, he said smoothly, his voice almost polite. "You should give me that drive." A cold chill ran down her spine. He knew. Somehow he knew. She tightened her grip. "Why?" she asked, her voice calm but with an edge of steel. The man didn't flinch. He kept his hands at his sides, a deliberate move. He wasn't trying to attack, not yet, but the threat was there. "Because," he said, taking a slow step closer, "you don't understand what you're holding." Stop. What does he mean? Comment your theories below. Melania's heartbeat remained steady, but she was thinking fast. The man wasn't asking. He was expecting her to comply. That meant he wasn't used to being told no. She glanced at the agent beside her. He was waiting, watching her, letting her decide. And in that moment, she made her choice. She wasn't handing over anything. What should Melania do next? Expose the truth or escape? Comment below. What's her smartest move? The man sighed. His polite mask cracked just slightly. "Don't make this difficult, Mrs. Trump." But Melania only lifted her chin slightly. "Difficult?" she repeated, her voice soft but unshaken. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." The man's jaw clenched, and then the air changed, because behind him, more footsteps, more men, stepping out of the shadows. Melania's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a warning. This was a planned operation. They had been waiting for her. What happens next? Do they try to take her? Does she escape? Comment below. What would you do in this moment? The tension in the air was suffocating. Melania didn't move. Neither did the agent beside her. But the man in front of them? He was waiting, expecting compliance. And behind him, his backup had arrived. 3 more men stepped from the shadows, silent, watching, ready. Stop. What would you do? Comment below. Fight back or surrender? The air was thick with unspoken threats. Melania knew exactly what was happening. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to erase a problem before it became a crisis. And that problem was her. She had seen this before, not with guns, not with brute force, but with pressure, control, disappearance. That's how the real power worked. She had 2 options. Option 1, give them the flash drive and pretend this night never happened. Option 2, refuse and make herself a target. She lifted her chin slightly. "I don't think you understand," she said, her voice smooth but laced with steel. "I don't answer to threats." The man's jaw tightened. His patience was slipping. "Mrs. Trump, don't be reckless." She didn't blink. "And you don't know who you're dealing with." The agent beside her shifted slightly. A small movement, but enough to prepare for whatever came next. The men behind them were getting restless. One reached toward his earpiece, awaiting orders. Melania saw it, and she made her move. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen was already recording. The moment the men saw it, they froze. Pause. Wait. Smart or risky move? Comment below. Melania held the phone up, ensuring every face was captured. Then, calmly, she said, "You have one chance to walk away, or the world finds out what's on this drive." The man's face darkened. Wait. Who holds the power now? For the first time that night, he hesitated. Comment below. Do you think they'll back down, or do something desperate? 1 second passed, then another. Then, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his jaw clenched, and just like that, the energy shifted. He exhaled sharply, took one last look at her, and then he turned and walked away. The men behind him followed, silent, vanishing into the darkness as if they had never been there. Melania didn't move until the last shadow disappeared. Only then did she lower her phone. She won. But at what cost? She turned to the agent. He was still staring at the empty space where the men had stood. Then he exhaled sharply. "You just made enemies, ma'am." She tucked the flash drive into her coat. They were already enemies. And with that, she turned. What happens now? Will Melania expose the truth? Or have they already made her a target? Comment below. Should she release the flash drive or keep it hidden? The night was silent again, but Melania knew better. The men may have disappeared into the darkness, but this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Stop. What would you do next? Comment below. Before reading further, she could feel the weight of the flash drive in her pocket. It wasn't just a small piece of technology. It was leverage. It was power. It was danger. And now, it was her responsibility. Does she expose it or disappear with the truth? The agent beside her finally spoke. They'll come for you now. Melania turned, her expression unreadable. I know. So what's the plan? She didn't answer right away. She could destroy the drive, walk away, pretend she had never seen it. But she knew herself, and she knew the truth couldn't stay hidden. So she made a choice, a final, irreversible choice. She reached for her phone, opened a secure contact, and sent a message. Be ready. Then without another word, she started walking. Comment below. Who did she text? What comes next? The aftermath. By morning, the world knew everything. The footage on the flash drive leaked online. News stations played it on repeat. The voices, the whispers of power, the names that weren't supposed to be spoken, were now public. The secret was out. And Melania Trump? She didn't hide. She didn't explain. She simply watched the storm unfold. And as the media scrambled, as politicians denied, as the people reacted, she did the one thing they never expected her to do. She stayed silent, because now she didn't need to say anything. The truth spoke for itself. Wow. What a ride. What did you think of this story? Comment below. Did she do the right thing, or did she just put herself in more danger? Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.